Reboot It!
Hey everyone, I'm Ron Swallow, and welcome to Reboot Rewind, the official after show for Reboot It. Today we have the whole crew here, and by whole crew, I mean producer Bill.
Hey.
Ed Greer.
But where's Billy?
Where's Billy? You guys, it's as if maybe he has a child and a busy life and has to do those things. So.
Or maybe he quit the show? Who's to say? Who's to
dun,
say?
dun, dun.
Maybe we're going to have a way different do crew. We'll see.
It'll be less xenophobic. I know that.
Straight xenophobe.
Xenophobe. That was so great. So this is the Reboot Rewind show where we go over our older shows and we talk about the different comments that people left and how we got to where we're going. This episode, we're talking about The Flash. That was a fun episode. How did we decide to do The Flash?
Well, I think The Flash is distinguished by this was where we really decided to go all in on we're going to reboot the entire Justice League. I felt like we had kind of been soft pedaling it. We did Batman in season 1, just sort of treated it as its own thing. Came out hot in season 2 with Green Lantern because we like the idea of let's take one of the biggest superhero bombs ever and try to make something out of it. And I think after Green Lantern went as well as it did, we're well, let's keep this train rolling. But it wasn't until the premiere of season 3 that we were guys, should we be building up to a Justice League? And we all said yes. And hence we opened season 3 with The Flash.
Yeah. And I feel like it's one of those. I mean, I think it's become a drinking game for Rewind for me to say that we built up our skills in order to take on a certain reboot. But I think if we had done this in season 1, it would have been a worse than Batman-esque shit show, in my personal opinion. And not just to castigate us to the worst timeline or anything. I just think a lot of what we were able to do in this one was hard earned over multiple reboots. And even this one, we wandered in the desert, but we came back with some stone tablets, baby.
Yeah, this one was, I have nothing but fond memories about this one. I don't know. There was an energy to it. I think we were all anxious to be back recording episodes. It was a little bit of we were trying to return ourselves to normalcy. This was around the fall of 2020. So it was the pandemic had been going on for a while. We had sort of been stuck doing rewinds, and just to get back into it and actually exercise our brains, really collaborate with each other. There was something very kind of not vicarious, but there was something very I don't know, energizing about it. And I think it shows in the finished product. This is a really interesting pitch that we came up with.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you, Ed? Do you remember this fondly? Do you feel like it went well?
My brain works. I remember at around the 50-minute mark, we finally, and it's so funny when people pre-comment, and I love when people hit the algorithm and you jump on there and say, "Oh, you guys, you're messing up. Oh, wait a minute." I love that because it helps the algorithm. But it's just the people who really think that we're going to stay in some weird cul-de-sac that we find ourselves in for the whole episode and ruin it at minute 25. It's just hilarious because at minute 50, we had said so many things, and Bill took each and every one of the things we had, each thing that was laid out as a track going in a different direction, and he consolidated them all into one track for a big fat train. And that's what it's about. That's what we're doing here. No part of the previous stuff that we discussed was utterly discarded. They were combined. And that's what the spirit of this.
Look, I remember the most important thing, and that's that I got Clock King in something. It's just been one of my dreams.
Oh, dude. And by the way, he was the perfect fit for what this ended up becoming. And I will say this, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I remember at the time, and even now looking back, I felt like coming out of this episode, this was the best example of what I think my core competency is in this sort of group creative setting, which is not so much I'm going to come up with the best idea, most out there crazy take on anything, but it's just the ability to sort of listen and integrate and sort of like take all the good shit that you guys say and put it within a framework and a structure that actually works as a story. And I felt like, yeah, for whatever reason, that just clicked in this one. And I was as excited as anybody when I was like, okay, if we take this and this and this and this and this, what if it goes this way? Like, there's just something about that that really worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, you know what? Why don't we get to the pitch and then we can discuss a little bit about how different than this was than a lot of the reboots we've done and how the comments were way more positive than we expected. Yeah, so let's do it.
Detective Barry Allen is a nihilist, convinced more than ever that in a world of Superman and cosmic marauders, life is meaningless. But then fate leaves him the only survivor of a bizarre accident for which he is arrested and charged with sabotage. In custody, he discovers the accident changed him, and he uses his super speed to escape. On his trail is internal affairs detective Iris West, determined to bring Allen in, but she may become his greatest ally in the search for the truth behind the accident. Against them, a federal team of super geniuses who can turn Central City itself into a giant death trap, led by a surprise man in the chair. Lex Luthor, commanding this team of rogues from federal custody.
I mean, goddamn, that is good. I mean, really.
It should be said that we that is from a particular. If you don't know what you just watched, when we did our big Justice League culmination, I kind of blew the doors off and cut us a nice little trailer that was like a recap of all of our previous DC movies. And so that's just the Flash segment. But if you haven't seen that, it's on the Reboot It timeline. Check out the channel. It's pretty dope.
It is pretty great. It's pretty amazing. I mean, I thought we nailed all the stories that we did, and then you made them sound even cooler with all the work you put in. So truly appreciate that, Bill.
That is literally my job, is to cut together stuff that makes something look awesome. So
that's cool. So you guys, one of the things that I found interesting is if you guys know Flash, you know that's not even one of the stories from the comic books at all. We changed the origin of a character and no one got mad at us.
It's pretty unbelievable.
So what do you think that means? Now, is it a positive thing or a negative thing towards the Flash?
Ooh,
that's interesting.
Okay.
You see where I'm going there?
Uh-huh.
I'm saying that maybe, look, and I like the Flash, but I'm saying that maybe people aren't so obsessed with the Flash that they care how his origin story was created.
I got a hot take for days on this one. I may have even said this before in some forum, but I'll say it here right now. I don't think the Flash is a real character. Like, to this day, I don't think he is a character. The Flash is like a pastiche. And there's a reason that when Jeff Johns took the comic book writer, Jeff Johns, took over the character in like the 2010s, he was the one who invented this whole, his time traveling arch nemesis killed his mom when he was a child. And it's all sort of like this causal time loop of him trying to save his mom from his arch enemy is what causes him to become the Flash to begin with. And they end up in this weird time displaced, tete-a-tete, him and Reverse Flash. That wasn't a thing until like 2011 or so. I may be getting that date slightly wrong, but it was certainly well after the turn of the century. The Flash has been a character since the golden age of comics. And up until Jeff Johns did that thing, he literally had no motivation and no character. It was just, I got hit by lightning, I could run fast, I'm going to put on a costume and try to do some good. And then they even went the further step of like, he had a bunch of rogues in his rogues gallery who all sort of had like a friendly agreement with him that they would never kill anybody and he would never hurt them too badly. Like, the Flash is almost a spoof of superheroes and really had no purpose or direction until he died in Crisis. And then finally, his successor, Wally West, was allowed to be a real character because he actually had something worthwhile happen in his life to which he could react. and try to live up to.
Yeah.
But like, honestly, other than that, the Flash is worthless. I'm just going to say it. I love the power set and the aesthetic, but as a character, he's nothing. He's paper thin. So that might be reflected here in people's ambivalence.
Yeah, that's what I just found it curious. What about you, Ed?
Well, no, I would just want to say it is definitely my reputation to come in hot and crap on stuff. And me and Bill kind of double up in that way. We're like the Dudley Boys, if you guys watch ECW wrestling. But I will say this. I think the Flash is the best example of what people used to think was enough to be a character. Like him, Shazam, a bunch of these fools are paper thin. And then we just got mature, I guess, in the 70s when we started realizing the government was trying to kill us, and COINTELPRO and gas lines and the Sheik of Iran and all this jazz. All of a sudden, we're like, the world sucks. This is crazy. Stuff is real. And we get this sensibility of wanting this extra layer. But them fools back in the days run fast, have a girlfriend he's on dates with that he's late for all the time, hijinks. Was quite enough for 50, 60, 70 years. So I think that's, I try to look at it in an almost positive way of like, he just represents in clear terms how much more story and more pathos we tend to want out of superheroes now than before.
It's the evolution of storytelling. I mean, it's wonderful. It's a great example of that. And I think the best characters can change for the better. And I think, well, I think you watched the thing and I think you can see that we added a lot of like motivation to the character. Let's hear what some of our friends who love us and watch us every single time thought. We got Crimson Knight. Crimson said, great seeing the reboot going back in action. Surprised how late Mr. Peters showed up in the episode. But I think having Mickey Rourke in the movie might be the best of his suggestions. And then, Bill said John Peters moves in mysterious ways.
And that one, I do recall that it was really late in the episode, and it did spin us into a direction of acknowledging some of the things that they did in the Flash before, like people from different timelines, different dimensions being present or wanted to take part in Barry's origin. And I just quibble with one thing you said right before we did this, Ron. I don't think we gave him any more motivations. I think we took the ones that were there and polished them up. And I'm not trying to be nitpicky on that, but it's like they were there. We have to give credit to Jeff Johns and all these Shoulders of Giants and all that jazz. But I think certain tweaks that we did, like when I said that perhaps Barry could have assumed and joined the law enforcement and stuff because he felt as though he bought the fact that his dad killed his mom. It was a thing that was a fact to him that his dad killed his mom. So he grew up thinking that his dad killed his mom. And in this adventure, he figures out that wasn't the case. And now he's got this whole other cross to bear. That's just an inversion of the cross that Jeff Johns gave to him. But we have the benefit of time to just tweak it a little bit and make it just that much more of a twist of the knife for the character.
To be fair, that is also classic editorializing, because didn't we say that we were getting rid of the whole wrongfully imprisoned dad thing and we were sort of transposing it to him? Like we were keeping the idea of like a wrongful imprisonment, but it was he that was wrongfully imprisoned instead.
Well, yeah, he definitely was wrongfully imprisoned. I'm just saying, like, even the parts of the origin, I do get what you're saying. Like, I don't know if that was going to be part of the actual end of it. But that's one thing I think wasn't very clear, because I watched it recently and it's like, we didn't talk about it anymore, but it was definitely like, okay, Barry, it was almost like it could be a twin story. You know what I mean? But I do see how that could be duplicative on a certain level, because we never talked about him talking to his dad in jail, which could have been some good scenes if that was the case in that universe. But I do get what you're saying.
I mean, the whole Mickey Rourke thing, and I think where it ties back to what you're saying, Ed, is like we sort of threw him in as, okay, almost like Shinzen, I think, was the character in the Iron Man movie that he's imprisoned with that helps him invent the armor. It's almost like, all right, so Barry starts this story, and essentially, the most effective way to use the Flash has always sort of been this self-conscious commentary on superheroes. So in this world where we already have Batman, Green Lantern, and Superman movies made, you start with a character who sort of has no family. We did say he sort of has some kind of darker, mysterious past that we don't get into, but sort of lives this very nihilistic life of like, I'm cleaning up murders, and murders happen because, you can't control the universe, and the universe is a harsh mistress and whatever. And then when he gets caught in this accident that gives him powers, he ends up getting arrested. He's accused of sabotage, a bombing, or whatever it is. And then he meets this Mickey Rourke character in a similar role to that Shinzen character, who sort of sets him straight. And Mickey Rourke is a convict, but there was a lot of like, well, could he be Reverse Flash? Could he be the Turtle? Could he be Jay Garrick? And I think we said, like, what if we just leave it open-ended and it's sort of like a breadcrumb that the audience can speculate on? Like, was that really someone else? Which I kind of liked.
Yeah, I love doing that, because then if we're making this and we make a second Flash movie, we can use that if we feel like it. So leaves it open. Leaving it open also makes it more fun, because you're going to get talk about things like all the Easter eggs you leave and you don't mention the Easter eggs. That's going to create what is the word? A press. Yeah.
Oh, but also one last thing on that. One thing I think a lot of people like to see when we do these is like if we've thought about the story afterwards and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing I was thinking about is we didn't really have time to elaborate it on in the pitch, but like the sequence of events of discovering you have superpowers in prison is a great sequence. No matter how you examine it, no matter how you imagine it, that's a great sequence, And even if it's just like, well, the sisters tried to get to Barry and he ran and he broke the sound barrier. Even if it's that simple, how he ends up getting out of jail, but like the sequence of learning, you think you're going crazy because you're doing these super speed things, or you're having this lapse of time when you've moved this giant distance, or, all these different ways we could show that in a prison environment. Just great stuff. That would be really great for a director.
Absolutely. And I think it also just creates such a visceral sort of, turn into the superheroics, because as we discussed in the episode, the idea that like the first time you see him use his powers, he's essentially like bungling his way into this prison escape. And then you sort of leave him in this place of, oh my God, I'm a wanted fugitive. Oh my God, I have these powers. Oh my God, I need to clear my name. There's like such a heavy sort of set of stakes over him. And then on the opposite side, you have sort of this evil genius mega group just assembles and is like, our only objective is to find this one guy. I don't know, man. Like it's so propulsive. Like I could just feel like this is a roller coaster of a movie. So many good set pieces.
And I love the twist that regular audience members or fans of comics would feel, knowing that these are all rogues, that these are all bad guys, and that they're not set up as bad guys. They're kind of set up as catching a bad guy in that world where like literally they're being hired to catch a fugitive. And I love that there's like that subtle, hint at like, oh, look at these guys. They could be future bad guys. And Lex Luthor being the main bad guy. Wonderful. Who came up with that? Do you guys remember?
I think it was Bill.
I think it was me.
Yeah. It was a great idea.
I'm always trying to shoehorn some Lex Luthor in where he fits.
I think it made sense because it's like, who are they going to hire to catch this speedster? Well, you got to find the smartest person.
But again, also just real quick, Bill, it's about getting the smartest person on a unique problem. This problem has never been faced by human history. So you would try to get a smart, unique team of people to resolve it. I think Bill's mind going directly there shows, that he understands superhero storytelling in the world that we were trying to make.
Yeah. And I also think it does a lot of interesting things, again, with us embracing the idea of like, oh, we're creating a whole shared universe. Number one, it sort of gives Lex Luthor a proto Legion of Doom to play with. Number two, it creates that idea of the rogues gallery that sort of operate within certain rules or at least loose guidelines without it having to be so cheesy as like, we all get together in a secret hideout and shake hands with each other. It's like, no, they've been recruited for this specific government mission and there's only so far out of line they can get. But at the same time, they're still trying to capture or possibly even kill the Flash. like that's the exact setup from the comics, but it all just works in a little bit more of a realistic cinematic fashion. So
absolutely.
Yeah, not patting myself on the back, but it just all works really nicely.
It really did. And you should pat yourself on the back. Let's talk about this next comment with a lone wolf howling. You gave a nice response. And Lone Wolf said, that's a reboot that flips everything on its head. A true reboot. And even as a purist and traditionalist that thinks canon is king, this would be the most compelling Flash story to see in a movie. Great job, guys. And then, Bill, can you read this? Because I think this, in your voice, it's perfect.
I said, it is always our goal to walk that razor's edge of preserving the most vital pieces of a franchise while reinventing in a way that will still surprise, delight, and provide for visuals you've never seen before. That's why we always start our discussion with conversations about audience expectations and theme. If we get the core DNA right, then we're more free to remix and rewrite a lot of the details. We don't always succeed, but it's our intent every time.
Yeah.
Sorry,
hold on one second. That's perfect. Your voice is so perfect for that, Bill, because you clearly wrote it. So,
but it is true. Sorry, Ron, not to cut you off, but like, we aren't super on the nose when we talk about like the steps of our process. But it is true that like on our cheat sheet that we wrote back when we created this show, like the first two questions are always, what does an audience expect? And what are the themes going to be? What's the story about? And that's not just because it's like an interesting way to structure the argument. It's also because that's the first thing you need to think about when you tackle a reboot. Because if you can really understand those two things, like where's your audience coming from and what does this story really mean? Then you can play. If you don't figure those two things out, you get lost in the weeds.
Yeah. How about you, Ed? Feel the same way?
Yep.
All right, cool. Let's get on to another comment then. We got Alden Diaz. Alden Diaz said, I absolutely loved this pitch. Flash on the run while all of these C-list villains emerge with their traps is just brilliant. Great way to blend a lot of the key Flash elements in an inspired way. And I love how it stands apart from the grand, more cosmic things also happening in your DC world. I was unsure about the street level approach at first, but you guys knocked it out of the park. P.S. At the beginning of the episode, Billy mentioned how having a child is kind of like a reboot. And I'm not sure he's seen it, but Jay and Silent Bob Reboot actually says just that. That's the exact message. There's a whole scene about it that's really sweet and touching. So first off, thank you for mentioning Billy. We miss him. We're not sure what's happening right now. Honestly, guys, who could be dead. I mean, he tweeted literally just like a few hours ago, but you never know. That could be. But that was one of the things I thought was interesting, that we did such a big, twist on it and ended up coming up good anyways. Crap. Why did I just click that? Sorry, guys. Hold on.
I just want to mention, I think it was Ed that suggested that we keep this very street level, like not try to get into any of the crazy time travel, multiple dimension shenanigans right away. And I think that was a great call. That was a great limitation for us to build the story inside. Yeah,
I probably would have brought it up, but thank you for not making me look too hubristic. But yeah, I really thought that was my major contribution for like probably the first 40 minutes, honestly, was just like trying to put a framework on it that wasn't so much he can do anything and our job is to come up with problems for a person who can do anything. That's no. I felt like that was absolutely wrong, especially given the origin story, especially given, all the parameters of us introducing him to this universe and stuff. And I think keeping him an actual, besides Batman, he's the crime fighter of this group of Justice League. He's the crime fighter,
Yeah, you had a really salient sort of grasp on, I guess, the tone of what the movie should be. And that's sort of everything from being very correct when you identify as like, no, he is a street level crime fighter, despite the fact that he's often written with like these cosmic scale powers. That is how he functions best within the team. And then also, if you go back and watch that episode, Ed, I think you and I have a lot of cool back and forth about how you could sort of show his powers developing over the course of this movie and even into subsequent movies, where it's like you really end up earning the ability to breach the dimensional barrier or whatever he ends up doing. But it's something that like is going to require time and effort and mastery on his part, rather than just like, oh, I got struck by lightning, now I can do whatever. You know, I again, just a brilliant take that I think would be extraordinarily cinematic. You know, I don't know that it's the best take in comics, but like if you're making movies, that is 100% the way to go.
Yeah. And I felt like it was like showing his different gears. That's part of Speed, showing the different gears.
Yeah. Well, and also you guys are against the mumbo gumbo. And when you start when you start doing too many time hopping, dimension breaking things, the mumbo gumbo gets deep, and then you can't make a movie without mentioning the mumbo gumbo, and then it turns into 2.5 to 5 hours, and who knows? You know, it gets confusing. And I've come to agree with you guys, by the way, on that. Mumbo gumbo is great for my books. I will always love my mumbo gumbo in my books, but we do not need it in a movie. It makes it too complicated and takes away from the most important things we just talked about, which is the theme, the character arcs, the story, and then, of course, what an audience wants to see. Because an audience doesn't realize this, but they don't like the mumbo gumbo either.
That's actually really true. Like, and again, I would encourage you, if you're watching this right now, to sort of take a step back and think about it. The simpler the setup for a movie, the more satisfying the action and the set pieces. Just categorically, right? Yeah. Like the more that the stakes are extremely simple and understandable, the more that the personal motivations are just laid right out on the table, the more that you're going to find yourself wrapped up in all that spectacle. The more you actually have to stop and try and keep track. Jupiter Ascending is a great example of a movie where there's way too much crap to keep track of.
That was exactly what I was thinking. Literally exactly what I was thinking. I bet I would love to read the book version of Jupiter's Ascending. I'm sure I would totally enjoy that in a 3-week period of time.
And that's the thing, like that movie is gorgeous and they do unbelievable visual things, but you kind of lose track of any feeling because there's just so much mumbo gumbo. Yeah. So just
I don't know if you guys
just say no to mumbo gumbo.
Although you can say yes to our mumbo gumbo t-shirt. It will be in the links down below. Click on it and get to it. It's going to be awesome. Just look, I can't make the mistake of not mentioning our t-shirts, guys. It's very important. All right, let's get to...
I would be remiss if I didn't also say it's not just t-shirts. It's mugs, it's coffee cups, it's wall art, it's stickers, it's magnets, it's buttons. Like you can get all kinds of different stuff with a bunch of cool designs that we've got up on that store. So again, go down and check the description. The link is there.
Yeah, and we have a couple people who have bought stuff and tagged us in Instagram and on Twitter. I believe it was Angie and Suze Vera. We really appreciate you guys doing that. So here's some shout outs for you guys. And now let's get to another comment from a often commenter and big fan of ours, Jim Jam. Jim Jam said, "Man, I could feel something special brewing under everything you guys were saying, but it felt so elusive until Bill just suddenly nailed it down. That was incredible to watch. Not sure it's gone from ephemeral to concrete in so fast a time before. Appropriate for the Flash. Loving the Jesus hair on Bill too. God, I love the show so much." And Bill answered, "Wait till you see how much more GCC this hair gets, baby." And I think you can tell right now that
it's all here. It's all happening.
Yeah. Look, I'm not saying we nail you to a cross right now, but no. Just kidding.
Well, and the one thing that I would say also on it taking a while to coalesce was, I think, trying to fit Flash into the street level aesthetic that I guess sold pretty well in the beginning was a little bit like, I don't know, trying to get us to like see what parts of canon were necessary, like him being some sort of cop was necessary. But I think I early on was just like, well, I don't know why he can't be Johnny Utah. Cause like, I just think it's just interesting to me that somebody with even a little bit of capability and sort of a lawman type getting these superpowers, it's almost never happened. And I think that's interesting. It's like fighter pilots get to be space cops. Rich boys get to be, alley cops. This guy is a cop who gets the power to, and again, we talked about it in the episode. It was kind of trying to put a hat on a hat a little bit, but it bore out the theme. If detectives show up after the crime is over, they're inundated with the fact that they were too late over and over. And again, a little on the nose there, but at the same time, when given the power to be everywhere or to get there faster, there's all the more impetus and onus on that character. There's all the more weight on that character that now that they can be there on time, it's all up to them. And it's up to their mastery of their abilities and all this kind of jazz for them to get there on time. I just felt like that was really, really interesting undercurrent, like a bass note under the whole episode.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. And the other interesting thing is, as soon as he gets the power to do that, as soon as he gets the power to not be 2 steps late to every murder, he also is confronted with the situation where his understanding of justice changes because suddenly he's falsely accused, falsely imprisoned. Now he's got to clear his own name. So it's sort of a double whammy of like, number one, that sort of nihilistic, like, well, we just clean him up because what are we going to do about it, is challenged. And then his whole idea of like right and wrong is also challenged. And so it's a great pressure cooker for this character. And again, anytime you could be that character driven, the story is going to work.
Yeah. But we did have some interesting comments that were, mostly positive, but sort of, this is mostly positive. Neck Twister had to say, I love everything about this except Barry Allen not being a forensic CSI, but that's more of a nitpick. And then Bill said,
I'll say, I need to see it to read it though.
Oh yeah, sorry. Here you go.
Anyone who can recognize their own nitpicks as inconsequential gets a heart.
I mean, and I think that's true. I think that's a good quality in people. I just had a Twitter tete-a-tete with somebody who basically they said something about like certain things that are progressive have sort of an armor on them, so you can't criticize it without looking like an ist or something. And I said, tell me some of them. And he wouldn't, because he was afraid of, like, I would call him some kind of, it's just weird. Like these parameters are all messed up. And if you would just say, you know what, that's true. I am, if I were to name one, I would be saying that's an actual thing. Ah, man. But he wouldn't. So then there's like 5 extra comments of crap when you could just go, yeah, you're right. I framed that weird. Or admit to one you don't like you don't like New Trek because too many people are crying and the Klingons sound like shit. Say it, own it. You know what I'm saying? I think we do a good job on this show of having people own their ideas, right? We challenge each other on our ideas. If I say that, the Flash should be a priest, Bill goes, but why? And stares intently at the camera to burn in my soul. And I have to make a case for that. You know what I'm saying? And I think I do it to people too.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like with this He-Man thing. The new Masters of the Universe that came out, that is not called He-Man. It's called Masters of the Universe. And it's basically starring Teela. And it really upset a lot of people that it's not starring He-Man. And my question for them is, what makes you unhappy? Do you think the show is bad because it's bad for some other reason? Or you just not like it because you want He-Man? And I think that's the big difference. If you think it's a bad show and you have a conversation about why you think it's a bad show, and it doesn't have anything to do with it specifically being Tila as the master of the universe, then what's your problem? If it's just because I wanted to see He-Man be He-Man again, well, then that's just a weird opinion that doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the cartoon that just came out. So I think that's one of the differences.
I think here's the thing, like cognitive dissonance is a hell of a thing, right? And so people having to sit with, something about this really bugged me. And also that thing that bugged me could mean I'm sexist or racist or whatever. It's just an uncomfortable place to be. You know what I mean? Like people just feel icky about that. So rather than sort of admitting that to themselves, it's a lot easier to go, well, no, I didn't like it because they did it wrong. They messed up. I'm correct. They messed up. And so you just convince yourself of that essentially just to protect your ego, because you don't want to take that hard look at like exactly what you're talking about, Ron. Like, well, what am I responding to? And frankly, like, there's really no getting around the idea of like, well, I wanted to watch a He-Man series, not a series about his female sidekick, is just a sexist attitude. You can feel that way, but it is just a sexist attitude. So like, just, be okay with that. And if you feel like if you are one of those people and you are uncomfortable saying that, maybe just don't say anything. I don't,
Well, especially, but I would make this caveat. It's half of the show. The show's not over. You haven't seen the whole show. So if I would tune into a Superman comic book and the whole thing was Lois Lane doing stuff, I would be kind of miffed. But if it's half of it and they're making me yearn for Superman so that the final 6 issues are the most Superman action I could ever handle, and an intrinsic part of getting Superman back into the story was intense bravery by this person without the powers, what's wrong with that? That's dope. Why wouldn't you understand that that's dope? And it just speaks to I got to comment right now, even though it's not done. Again, I love when people do that. But on this level with shows like that are being in active production, why wouldn't you just wait to see the entire thing before you just be so weird? I don't know.
And like, go ahead.
Ron.
I was going to say, look, guys, I think our audience is the kind of audience that is open to learning. And I think that's a big deal. Our fans right now are people who I think can change their mind, can grow, and just generally be better people. And I think that that's something we need to do in all aspects of life, from watching a movie and analyzing how we feel about it and being able to go, just like Bill said, being able to step back and go, oh, do I dislike this because I'm kind of uncomfortable with women? And here's the best part about that. Once you do that, you can start getting comfortable with women because you've now realized that you have a problem. And there's nothing wrong with a problem unless you let that problem become a huge portion of your life and take it out on other people. You can get better as a person. You can make a decision. Sorry, guys, I'm cheesy about this stuff. And it's because I've done that. I think we've all done that. We've all been the person where we had some stupid belief about something that we had to learn from and get better as. So while you can certainly dunk on those people, and I think you should, keep in mind that hopefully at some point they can step back and get better as people. So,
redemption arcs, baby. That's Ron's jam.
It is. It's 100% my jam.
Also, just since to close out this weird tangent about He-Man, if you haven't watched She-Ra and the Princesses of Power on Netflix, you are missing out because that show kicks ass. And there's a lot of it too. So go get on that.
Absolutely. So we got 2 more comments. And this one I think could start a pretty good discussion. It's Charlie Carpenter. Charlie said, such a great episode. Also could be interesting to frame this rogues gallery as an extension of Waller's Suicide Squad. Would also love to see you guys redo a Batman reboot in the framework of your new universe. Which Bill said,
Our Batman reboot is in our RBDCEU, Reboot DC Extended Universe. It's just tucked away in its own little corner because our Batman is very much the urban legend of Gotham, not the Batman leader of the Justice League.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I want to talk. I kind of want to seize on that a little bit. I think that's one of the best things that we did with Batman is making him a little bit, fallible. Like, is that I'm saying it right? Fallible. He's not infallible anymore. Yeah,
sure.
He has some weaknesses and can be beat and has to work hard to get to success. And we didn't do that one perfectly. None of us are super happy with how that went. But I still think it's a pretty good rewatch and you should all go check it out.
Agreed. I also think, there's an obvious parallel to be drawn with Suicide Squad, with what we did with Lex Luthor in the Rogues Gallery. But I also think that, Suicide Squad has so far not been on our reboot docket. And there's just such a weird, I guess, recency bias to the things that are big in media, people just want. It's like, oh, let's do a version of that. And for my money, as much as I am very much looking forward to James Gunn's Suicide Squad, which actually should be out by now, by the time that you're watching this, I kind of don't feel any need to explore the Suicide Squad further. It's a fun concept, and I'm sure that movie is going to kick ass, but I don't know. That doesn't need to be something that has tendrils all through the DC universe. It's totally fine being its own weird little side thing.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually the best way to do the Suicide Squad because they're literally one-off situations. We just hire these crazy people who are totally like the Expendables and throw them at a problem, and that's it.
Yep.
Not that there isn't going to be some, hopefully, knowing James Gunn, some cool growth within some of the characters or not, but anyways, now we got to get to a very important comment. I think this is probably the most important comment that we could get, and that's from JK. He says, so bored with people crapping on the DCEU Flash suit. That's it.
Is this the same commenter that keeps giving me crap because I'm obsessed with Zack Snyder? I think it is.
Oh, maybe.
The avatar on this comment looks familiar to me.
Yeah.
First of all, JK, we're going to keep crapping all over the Snyderverse because it sucks ass. So stick it right up your ass. That's all I gotta say.
Well, I mean,
sorry, but that new suit is stupid.
Well, and I think what was interesting about it was I remember, the comedian brain just jumping on it. I said that it looks like such and such screwed RoboCop and made his suit, just something like that. And I think that sort of dismissiveness does rub people raw, and it does sort of dismiss the costumers' job that they did and blah, blah. All I got to say about all that is though, it looked clunky. Why would you make one of the most lithe characters in comics the character that shows movement, the character that is movement? Derek Robertson was on one of our podcasts and said that the Flash, as not a character as he supposedly is, got him into comics because seeing Jorge Garcia Lopez draw a giant sequence of 1,000 drawings of Flash running and doing all this stuff made him understand movement and art and appreciate all this jazz and blew his mind. So, you know what I mean? So that character in a freaking suit of armor stumbling up the road doing a Nordic track, that's the wrong way to do it. I'm sorry. It's nuts to me. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Take the fastest, most lithe character and put him in a tank suit. Doesn't make sense to me. Please make it make sense to me. You can't.
Yeah. Well, that's just like when the one of the jokes I do about Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man, when they put the Green Goblin in what can only be explained as a Power Ranger bad guy outfit. If you enjoyed that, you're a weirdo. I don't think it makes any sense. And I feel the same way about this new suit. The TV series does it fine. So I don't.
And it didn't look like a goblin. That was the last thing's last. Super looking back at that movie. It didn't look like an actual god. The whole point of Green Goblin was a weird goblin floating through the sky fights a spider dude. A dude in Power Ranger armor fights a spider dude. That would be very intense. but it ain't the same. It doesn't have the same quality to it.
Yeah. So that was our Reboot Rewind. We love when you guys write into us. We like the big comments. We like the small comments. We like you shitting on us. We like you saying nice things about us. We just appreciate all the love you guys give us. Hold on. Sorry.
I'm going to be on the Hot Carl website. That clip is going to be clipped out and put on a Hot Carl website.
We love it.
We love it.
Oh my God. What a drop. What a drop for somebody to clip out. Boy, Ron.
Please do it. Please do it, guys.
I got a big gross saran wrap here. It's about to be a crazy weekend.
Oh my God.
Jeez Louise, Ron.
Oh. Billy, this is what happens when you leave us. This is what happens.
Don't ever leave us, Billy. Don't ever leave us.
It gets
Basically,
real
guys,
scatological.
on behalf of producer Bill, Ed Greer, Billy Business, his kid, and myself, thank you for hanging out with us and being part of the community. Go get yourself a shirt and have a nice day. Bye.